Hello, everybody. Welcome back to A Smarter Tomorrow, a podcast where we talk about smart home technology and how it can benefit you and the world around you. My name is William, coming back for another episode. We have Steven and our other member here, Mike. We're going to ask him a couple questions about his time with the company, his background in technology, and kind of go from there. Welcome back, Mike.
Thanks.
So I know that you've been with the company for a handful of years, so why don't you give us a little bit of background on your time with Eco Smart Home Pros and kind of what got you into it?
Yeah, so kind of like you, I met Steven at Best Buy when we all worked there. Um, when Best Buy closed, I was kind of just trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And I think it was the spring of 2021, Steven asked me if I wanted to join the company because he wanted to open the Marquette location. And so, yeah, I said, well, I have nothing else to do, so might as well. And started with the company just as we rebranded to Eco Smart Home Pros from the previous iteration. And yeah, I've kind of done a bunch of stuff since then. Currently, I'm spearheading the podcast as I'm in California for the next couple months and the previous few months. Um, and yeah, I've done sales, I've done installs, I've done events, you name it. Pretty much, I've done it for the company, and yeah, I've been here since 2021, and have loved most minutes.
As anybody does with any job, yeah.
Right, exactly.
So I just want to thank everybody that is a new and or returning listener. If anybody's gotten you into the podcast or if you've stumbled upon it in your searches for something new, we just want to thank you guys for tuning in. Um, we're going to talk about some different things for some smart home security systems, and some of the different things that go along with that and the benefits that can come from that.
In today's episode, we are going to be talking about homes and smart home security. Homes with smart security systems are 3 times less likely to be burglarized. So we're going to talk about how you can integrate security systems into your general smart home, or if that's the only part of a smart home that you're interested in, different options that exist pertaining to like cameras, calling out, monitored, unmonitored, locks, etc. There's so much to talk about. So we've got quite a bit to go through today.
Love it. I know that I have a couple different things for a security system at my house. It actually came in pretty handy the other day because my sister came home and she was like, "Yeah, there was this weird guy standing across the street, just standing there staring at your house until I came in, like got out of the car and came inside. And as soon as I got out of the car, he started walking away really slowly and then faster and faster and started running away. So like I was able to pull up the feed on the camera and like zoom in on that corner of the thing to see if I could find the person that was just staring at my house. But it was super handy. The floodlight and everything else definitely helps.
Yeah, and in my situation, we don't have anything super intense, anything like that. We don't even have the only camera we have at our house is actually watching the backyard so that we can record like deer and skunk and coyotes and birds.
The
Um,
wholesome side of security.
yes, which is weird because we do live in the middle of nowhere. But I guess if you're going to try to come to our house, you really want to get in. Because yeah, it's not an easy place to get to. But of course, we have smart locks on all the doors, and that's more for the convenience of letting like tradespeople, a plumber, the HVAC people in and out when we're not home, because we're a family where everyone works that 9 to 5. So it's much easier for us to just say, "Hey, I'll let you in once you get there," etc. Or again, letting family that don't necessarily have keys or that left their keys at home, and we could be like, "Oh yeah, go grab that plant that you wanted. We'll unlock the door for you." Um, and then also putting it on our garage doors. Recently, I was able to get a new car, so I have that CarPlay setting, and I can actually open and close my garage door when I'm still half a mile away. Um, so which is really convenient because then, yeah, by the time I actually can see my house, the lights outside are on, the door is open. I'm not having to sit there just outside my door. waiting for that thing to inch open, which is, again, really convenient. So we've tied that into other parts of our system, like the lighting. So again, as I said, we've got the lights turn on outside, but the light inside the entry door also turns on when I open it. So when I walk in the house, I have light to see how to take my shoes off, especially at this time of the year where it's dark by 5:30, 6 o'clock. So it's really convenient to have those different things tied together.
Yeah, and for us here in California at the house here, we're in a bigger city, so security is really the name of the game when it comes to cameras and smart locks and things like that. There's also a lot of family that kind of comes and goes whenever they please, and instead of having a key for everybody, it's nice that everyone can have their own code, um, and just come and go as they please, um, rather than having to have a key or lend people keys or whatever. I know my parents, they have a smart doorbell, mostly honestly for packages. My dad is um, very afraid of porch pirates. So, you know, he orders a lot of stuff. And when it comes, he can verify that it's been dropped off, not only from the camera and the email you get from UPS or whatever, but yeah, he's able to go out and get his stuff right away and not have to worry about people stealing. So,
Yeah, I would say that one of the main functions of my Ring camera that I have at home is to see when the UPS or the FedEx guy drops off something for me, because I'm one of those people that is staring down the tracking information, and I'm not one of those people that just forgets that I ordered something and I'm like, "Oh wow, look, a little present for me." No, I
right.
am I am watching that.
Yeah. Yeah, it came
Uh,
in handy the other day. Actually, we ordered something and UPS said it was delivered. We went outside to go get it, wasn't there. Looked at the email and the photo they sent was just like of the ground. They clearly just, whoever the driver was, wasn't paying attention. And we were able to watch the camera and see that it was delivered to somebody else on the little cul-de-sac. So we just went over there and got it. So that was nice.
yeah, it's always good when it's one of the more like easy to fix situations instead of like a picture of the ground like you said, and then it's 2-3 miles away on some other dude's porch.
Hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
So with a big part of the podcast, we've talked about how like technology can make everything more convenient, make everything a little bit more streamlined. But we don't really talk about how things used to be. So, like with traditional security systems, you had that ADT guy that would come to your house, or any of those other 24/7. We're going to protect the house and give you the windows and door sensors kind of things, where they had to run those physical cables across your house with the coax lines. And how we've moved kind of past that into a different kind of line, but gives you more flexibility, more customization with your security systems. And those are with IP cameras. They run with Ethernet cables across the house, um, and they can give you a better quality picture. They can expand into giving you some automation stuff. So, like they record on motion, or they record certain times of the day or anything like that. Uh, and I know that we work with a couple different brands that kind of capitalize on that AI and motion sensing capabilities, similar or not similar to, like with Ubiquity. That's the camera system that we use here at our office. It's a camera system that we've installed at multiple different client sites as well, to help out with being able to get them the security they need without having to constantly be recording footage that doesn't matter, or with having to constantly check those cameras. They can just get the notifications when they have them set up to do what they want it to do.
Yeah. So with those traditional cameras setups, those traditional security systems, um, yeah, you would often have to run coax, which it's running cable is still something that we recommend if it's a new build or something that is important to you that you are willing to re-drywall. That's oftentimes not the case, but um, if that is something that's important to you, we still recommend running that Ethernet. But it's a little bit of a different task than running coax. It's much easier and cheaper. to run Ethernet than it is coax. So, yeah, while the present is a lot of wireless things, there is still the option for wired if you want um, a more robust and capable wired system. Um, there's quite a few benefits for wireless systems. And Stephen, I know you've got a few in mind if you wanted to talk about those.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to talk about both options, pros and cons there. Um, so for like wireless options, Ring is obviously probably the biggest one. That's the most recognized wireless security system out there. Super simple to install. Like you can do an entire house in under a day. Multiple keypads, windows, doors, cameras, motion sensors, flood sensors. Um, they have wireless versions of all of those, and then they do have the couple hardwired versions. And even more recently, it was within the last like year and a half, they even came out with the PoE, the networked options for Ring for cameras, which was nice to see. Um, and then they have their more traditional ones that are hardwired for power, but then they use Wi-Fi for the cameras to control the light on and off, etc. So you can have both of those there. And then as for hardwired versions, your traditional security systems, what's really nice about those is they are much harder to get into. Um, they're not using popular wireless bands. They're not pushing the signal 200 feet out. Everything is running over just simple wires in your walls. Someone would have to tear apart your walls to get into. It's more difficult than Die Hard makes it look. Um, you can't just snip the wire, clip some stuff in, and take over a hardwired security system. But of course, those traditional systems do carry a higher upfront cost, as well as you're almost always under some sort of monthly or yearly contract to have the system operational. Um, so there's plenty of things to consider when you are trying to figure out, do you want more of a newer, modern, smart security system or traditional security? You have to consider all of the above, and installing a traditional system in a currently built home, of course, carries an even higher cost because, again, all of those wires have to go somewhere. So you're either going to do it when you're doing a remodel and taking drywall apart, or more likely, it's going to end up in conduit running along the ceiling or along the floor, and you're going to have that shown throughout your house if you're going that option. Um, and when you talk to a company like Ego Smart Home Pros, we're going to go through all of those options and find out what is it you want, what do you expect from your system, whether it's functionality, whether it's aesthetics, um, cost, budget. We go through all of those different things with you because when it comes to security systems at home, it is a wide range of all of the above.
Yeah, and speaking to that wide range, it really is more than just wireless or wired choices, isn't it? You've got cameras that are wired for power but wireless connectivity. You have cameras that are need to be wired for connectivity and power, and then you also have cameras that can run PoE or power over Ethernet, which not only is just the one cable, the Ethernet cable that powers the camera, and also connects it to the rest of the setup. Um, and so I guess the big thing for me when I think of like traditional versus non-traditional security systems is the range of options that you have with the newer systems versus the older systems. There's only really a few reputable brands, and those brands really didn't connect to anything else. They were just a security system. You had your camera, you had your monitor and a box in a closet somewhere that you could go and had to um, scrub through footage with a really horrible UI, and um, if something were to happen. Whereas the newer ones connect to everything. They'll connect to your entire smart home nowadays, where they can show, you can connect them to not only your door locks, but your cameras, your obviously your wireless, your thermostat, like all of those things will connect together now. Um, so I don't know if one of you want to speak to like the pros to connecting all of those things versus just that traditional throw it in a closet and hope something doesn't happen kind of system.
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing with getting it all connected like that is that you have everything right there at, a moment's notice to see if there's something wrong with the thermostat, to see if there's something wrong with the front door deadbolt or anything like that. The downside to it is that if there is anything that goes wrong with like a network outage or a power outage or anything, if you don't have the proper um, contingencies is the word I was looking for. If you don't have the proper contingencies for those things, then everything stops working. Like, you don't get those notifications for the cameras, as well as the cameras aren't recording because there's no power to any of those things in order to do it. So we do recommend to avoid that kind of fallout to get some kind of like backup power, whether that's a watt box, cyber power, or anything that does anything like that, as well as hooking in all of your different smart home stuff into that kind of thing, your networking, the the NVR or the network video recorder for the cameras if you go that route for those, because it can keep the network up and running enough to continue to get you those notifications, continue to get you those recordings if you need them for anything. But it's super convenient to have everything right there to be able to adjust whatever you need to adjust, or give access to whoever you need to give access to for those things, as opposed to putting it in a closet, forgetting about it. Excuse me, hoping that nothing happens to it, and then something does happen 6, 7, 8 months down the line, and you have to then open that closet, but you forgot that you put everything in that closet. Now you're digging through everything else that got put in there. The mouse is underneath a box of something, and it's been clicking buttons the whole time, and that's why something's messed up. So having it all digital, or having it all in a place that's more convenient, is definitely helpful.
Yeah. And some real life applications here. So like Will mentioned, we use the Ubiquiti Unify system in our office. So anytime someone unlocks that door, it actually records what's happening at the door for several seconds. So that's just an automated thing built in. Anytime that door is unlocked, we see it. Whether someone opens the door or not, we have that recording. Or for parents that are working all day, but your kids are old enough to get off the bus, go inside the house, but you want to make sure that everything is good. When that front door unlocks and they go in, like you can have your camera also record outside, inside, wherever it is. And you can physically see, yeah, my kid is safe walking into my house. The door is closed. They're inside. I'm good. They're good. I can go back to work with peace of mind. So again, thinking about those different things that we talked about, porch pirates. Again, getting that notification, seeing the package there. You can even do the two-way audio with certain doorbells and cameras, so you can say like, "Hey, thanks. Could we actually move that to the side of the house instead?" If you're afraid of something happening, you're not able to get there on time, or you can't have someone else get there in time. Because again, you always have the option if your neighbor's home, and say, "Hey, could you take my package, unlock the door, and let your neighbor put it inside?" Etc. Or Amazon even has their garage door delivery system, where if you have your garage door on Alexa, it can actually open the door like 2 feet. Amazon will just put it inside, push it under the door, and the door will close. So integrating all those different things has so many real life helpful functions.
And I've even heard of people seeing or knowing that UPS is coming. They come up to the door and you just say, "Hey, I'm going to unlock the door real quick. Can you just throw it in the door?" If you trust your UPS driver enough for that. But if you have cameras, you should be all safe, all good there. But um, yeah, so yeah, there's plenty of options. I mean, uh, that's really kind of where going with a reputable company is can help a lot of people with that peace of mind, because there are so many options. Decision paralysis becomes a real thing. That you can talk to somebody like us, uh, and we can kind of recommend a couple options and different price points that are like the best, rather than giving you a list of here's 500 companies that all make the same product.
Right.
So
Exactly. Um, and yeah, I know we were going to talk about different devices that do exist as well. I know we've covered cameras quite a bit here. But when it comes to like the brands that we work with, just because we don't mention something else, it doesn't mean we have any issues or problems with them. There's just certain ones that we do work with more often. Um, but like we talked about some of the different functionalities. So things like I see real time, Ubiquity's Unify cameras, Rings or Amazon's Ring system, all have different functionalities. They all have different capabilities. So again, like Mike was talking about, we can go through and recommend one or two options that we think is best for your expectations. So like we talked about, we have an office up in Marquette. It gets substantially colder there many more days of the year than it would here in our Muskegon office, which is one of the reasons we do like IC real time over some of the other options. Is they're built for that colder weather. They can go down to that 0, and some of their cameras even go into those negative temperature ranges, which we do see several days a year, which is important if security is something really important to you. If your house is located right on Lake Superior, like it gets quite chilly sometimes, and you want your door system to work. You want your door to open when you go to touch it, um, even when it's 3 degrees outside. You want your cameras to keep recording when it's cold outside. Uh, so those are some of the different things that we go through with you.
Yeah, and on that point, we actually had a pretty decent cold snap here last week or the week before. It got down to like with wind chill, it was pushing like -35, -37 for several hours of those days, and everything was just going wrong. I had to buy a new car battery because it completely killed it. I tried to open the car door and it opened like it was in slow motion because it was just so cold. And you think about some of the more mechanical things like that in your life that go slow, you have to kind of translate that into what some of the technology does when it's that cold. Like, sure, you want it to be cooler, but you don't want it to be frozen. So everything does move a little bit slower. Even the screens in my car when I tried to, you know, start it and keep it alive long enough to go anywhere, the radio screen came up really slowly. I have like a CarPlay box in my car. That screen came up really slowly compared to how it would normally come up. So you just have to keep that in mind with the different technologies that you want to put outside the home, which is where we come in and we help out with figuring out which brands are going to work for the frigid temperatures that you may or may not live in.
Right. So yeah, so we've covered quite a bit with cameras, doorbell cameras, stuff like that. We've briefly talked about smart locks. So having different options for that. Um, so we find that a lot of people will put those locks on all of their exterior doors. We'll put it on the garage door that goes between the garage and the house. Just super simple ways to have that security while having certain automations. So some people don't like motion detected automation in their home where they walk into a room and something happens. They want something a little less watchful. So tying something into your smart lock where you unlock the door, the lights turn on and off instead of motion or camera based, etc., or even location based. Like it's just a physical. You spin the lock, next thing happens.
Right.
So going through and covering different options like that. Smart alarm systems. Again, we've talked about the Amazon Ring system. We do work with several others. We are an alarm.com dealer. So working with those, working with Elk, which is one of the few systems we have left that doesn't have some sort of monthly recurring cost necessarily, depending on which system you choose. But unfortunately, most security systems, if you want some sort of monitoring and advanced automations, there's almost always some sort of recurring fee. And sometimes it is very low. Sometimes it's even just a couple dollars a year. But we do find that at this point, most of those you're probably looking closer to $10 to $20 a month for some of that. So we haven't talked much about monitored versus unmonitored systems either. So the difference there is, do you want other people monitoring and calling the police or the fire department on your behalf. So Ring actually has both options. So they're unmonitored is where it's on you. If your alarm goes off, there is no automatic call out to anyone else. You get notifications and then you decide, oh, I'm going to call the police, or my house is on fire, I need to call someone. So there's no fees typically with an unmonitored situation, or there there are no fees with an unmonitored security system, typically. The monitored ones, that's where you start to see that monthly fee get higher and higher, and it does depend on what you want monitored, what services you want to have taken care of for you. So that's your traditional style where, yeah, if something's happening in your house, you typically get a call from the monitoring station, which might be ADT, Alarm.com, your local security provider, etc. And they go, hey, is everything okay? We got an alarm, yada, yada, yada. And then you go, no, nothing. It's not okay. I'm not home. We need to do something. And then they call and they dispatch the police and they help take care of getting everything responded to. And if you don't answer, they typically just call and have a response unit sent to your house for you. So that's the difference there. I want to say with Ring, it's somewhere around $140 a year for that monitored service. But again, you have both options, and again, that's something to consider when you're thinking about what systems that you want. Um, and of course, it also does come down to like what Mike's been talking about is those different integrations. Do you want it to work with other systems in your home? Do you want shades to open and close? Do you want locks to lock and unlock? Do you want lights to be turning on and off for different things? So maybe if your smoke alarm is going off, do you want different lights in your house to flash red to give you a visual signal on top of that audible siren that's going off, etc.?
Yeah, that can
That can
be.
be super helpful for people who have disabilities or are deaf, things like that. Those types of uh, things can help with that accessibility. Not only like a secondary type of alarm, but can help with those types of things as well.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to say as well, is that it can help out with the disabled community. And I know that with a lot of the different smart stuff, that some people get hung up on the like data security, the privacy concerns that go along with that. Calling back to a previous episode where we talked about some of the different smart home stuff that we want to put into a home, or that like um, you are able to put into a home. People worry about Alexa listening to you, Google listening to you, all that different stuff. I know that with the wired services that we offer, Ubiquity, Unify, IC Real Time, that all that stuff is stored locally, and there isn't really any privacy concern that comes from that because it's not going anywhere outside of your network. Do we offer other devices and other systems that kind of go along with that, or that have that higher pri- um, priority on customer security and customer safety?
I mean, those are the main ones. I would say if you want a system that isn't connected to the network at all, a system like Elk is a great option. You don't necessarily have to be connected to the internet for that system to operate, but that does mean you're not going to be able to arm and disarm it from your phone, because it's not connected to do that. Um, when
Remote
it comes
monitoring usually too, like that would be something you wouldn't be able to do with a system like that.
right, yeah, because yeah, typically at this point, even monitored systems, most of that the between the monitoring station and the home is typically an internet connection, not not a dedicated electrical
Mhm.
connection.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it's always something to keep in mind. It is getting more and more difficult to find systems that are not connected at this point, but there are still plenty of systems where the companies are reputable and are not tracking or storing that data for any other purpose than making sure your system operates. Um, so
Right.
like you
That
said,
was more
like
what I was. It's more what I
Ubiquiti's
was going.
Unify system doesn't have to be connected to the internet for it to work. you have to be connected when you set it up. But you can always unplug it. And that's what we do actually when we use our travel demo kit. We set up the cameras for our home shows and whatnot, but we don't always have an internet connection connected to them. But we do have a system to help make sure that our booth is safe and secure when we're not there. Um, and that is a cloud connected system because then you can pull it up on your phone, you can view your cameras, and you can do the two-way audio. You can do all of those different things remotely. But again, it's very trustworthy. We are not concerned with that connection when it comes to that. Um, Whereas like there have been stories about the way that Wisecam and Ring cameras have shared videos and information with police without contacting the homeowners when like certain requests are made, and they just have been willing to give that information, sometimes even without a warrant. But those are again conversations of what's most important to you, and balancing out and finding that right system that meets your needs and wants.
Right, right in that line between I want to be safe, but I also want to keep my stuff with me as opposed to going out into, the world or being sold for anything for any other company.
Right.
And I know that with going with any kind of wireless option, you're putting more of that stress on your Wi-Fi network, whether that's at home or the business, and setting up a specific network for that, which would be like an IoT network, Internet of Things network, um, specifically for those devices to connect to is a great idea. And Mike, if you have anything to add about that, that would be great.
Yeah. So in this day and age, more and more and more things are connected. As everybody knows, people have more devices per person, per household than ever before. And the household basically has devices as well. Even as simple as smart microwaves or smart ovens, or, you know, then you get into like your security system and your TV and your brewing box, your gaming system. And there's so many devices now that are connected that, typically, if you you contact your ISP, your internet service provider, they're willing to give you a router. Sometimes they rent it to you, but sometimes it's just free of charge. Um, but oftentimes that's just not enough, especially um, in a house with more than one person. It's just not going to be good enough for types of devices that we have nowadays. So there's a lot of different options as far as Wi-Fi goes, but it's almost always a necessity when we go into a house or a business that we are upgrading that network, unless it's recently been upgraded. That's almost always the first conversation I have is, hey, we can certainly do this, these cameras for you, or this, whatever device for you, but we're probably going to have to upgrade the Wi-Fi at the same time. And that's just kind of the necessity nowadays with the way that everything is connected, and especially cameras. Anytime you are transmitting video, that's going to be the biggest usage of bandwidth. So if you're adding, several cameras to your house, even just a simple doorbell camera, that's going to use up a lot more bandwidth than, say, a smart microwave will. So um, yeah, that's something to think about as well, is using some sort of either a mesh network or something like that, uh, in order to make sure you have a powerful enough network to be able to power everything you have in your home. And oftentimes too, you don't want to, let's say your network needs right now require a certain baseline of, you know, let's say you have 50 devices. You don't want to upgrade your Wi-Fi to something that can handle exactly 50 devices. You want to think about the future a little bit, because those are expensive upgrades. So if you can upgrade to something that, say, can handle 200 devices, maybe, and it's a little bit more of a investment up front, but it's going to save you in the long run for having to upgrade again later down the road.
right? And then if you do have it set up for the exactly 50 devices and you have those 50 devices, everything's going to be trying to pull from that network at the
Yeah.
same time, or,
Yeah.
a good chunk of them are going to be pulling at the same time. So then the stuff that you want to work better is going to suffer because it doesn't have as much of that bandwidth to pull from.
Exactly.
Yeah, so making sure that you keep that future forward mindset for pretty much anything that you do with upgrades in the home is a really great mindset.
Yeah. You end up investing a little bit more upfront, but honestly, you end up saving a lot of money down the road having to upgrade again and again and again.
Right. Yeah, and as a perfect example of doing those upgrades and making sure that you like keep that stuff in mind. I actually recently talked with a client that we've worked with several times in the past that wants to add cameras to their property. And one of the first questions that she asked me when she was talking about adding those cameras in was, do we need to update our internet? Do we need to get better speeds so that we can handle everything that we're doing and the new cameras? And so it was really nice for her to have thought of that first instead of having to bring it up. And the people that don't take that in stride and don't understand that the internet is taken up in small pieces by everything that you have connected to it, um, it made it a much more easy conversation to be like, like with everything you have and everything that you're wanting to do, everything that you have for your internet is still fine. We just may need to upgrade some of the hardware that's in there, adding something that has more ports, that covers more of that PoE, that power over Ethernet side of things for those cameras, because all the access points we have on the property are PoE. All the cameras that we're going to be adding to the property are going to be PoE. So like we need to make sure that the hardware that's there for that property can handle all of that power. And it's the same thing with the network that you want to do with anything that runs off of that, is if it, takes so much wattage for all the cameras and all the access points, find something that does more. Because if anything, has power, gets too hungry for power, or you add in more things and you get close to that PoE budget, you can actually just make everything stop working because it's like, oh, we went over the budget, so we're just not going to work at all anymore. So
Yeah.
keeping that idea even with just the hardware as well is a good idea. Um, so for the next section here, we've kind of talked about a lot of it throughout the different sections that we've talked about on the podcast for today. So this one's more about like customizing the security system for like getting the size and method and everything that goes along with that security system that's going to benefit your home size or budget or aesthetic or what you want out of it. So we've talked a lot about that across the entirety of the episode today. Also talking about integrating it with other smart home features, with the smart garage door opener, having certain lights turn on and off, when you open a door, when you close a door, connecting those things with different voice assistants as well, because I know that a lot of cars these days are coming with either Alexa or Google or CarPlay kind of already built into the car. So then you can give all those commands through the car on your way home to open the garage door or anything like that. And then getting into more of the like monitored versus unmonitored systems, where we talked about putting that security system to a fire alarm or smoke detector, carbon monoxide detector, to be able to get that notification right away so that we can get that, or so that you can get that emergency response as quickly as you can. Um, and just kind of going over all those different pieces with that section of things. We actually have a client that we're going to be working with here in the next couple weeks that wanted to get more of that integration into their security system and just have it in the house as well. So like when they go and travel, they want to have certain lights turn on and off randomly throughout the day. Shades open and close, that kind of thing, just to like simulate them being home and being in the home, so that it can help to deter people that may think that it's a good spot to break into or a good spot to, do something with that they shouldn't be doing. And it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, and I mean that's one of the things I really like about the Lutron system is it's actually a randomized lighting setup each day. So it's not like some of these other ones where your light turns on at 9, turns off at 9:05, turns back on at 10:15, turns off at 10:30. Like it's truly random with the Lutron system. So someone that's watching your house several days in a row isn't going to be able to sit there in time and be like, oh, this is clearly just an automation on a timer.
So yeah, obviously there was a lot that we've talked about already. It seems like there's just plethora of options when it comes to security. Um, so how does somebody go about making those decisions? Even if even if they want to do DIY, is that something that we offer? Like, can we help design a system for somebody, even if they're going to be DIYing it themselves, or having, uh, obviously, like we are an installation company, we do that. But if somebody is building a house and say they're a builder and they want to do a lot of that themselves, but they're really not sure as far as the design side goes, so that's something that we can offer.
Yeah, of course we work with different people on varying levels. So yeah, whether you're a builder, a homeowner, we do offer brands that are DIY, ones where you might want to install all the equipment, but you're not comfortable programming and doing all the setup. Yeah, we're happy to work with all of our clients, depending on what exactly it is they're trying to get out of it, because we understand that can save money, it can save time. There's a lot of benefits to sharing some of that workload sometimes, and we're happy to do that.
Yeah, I know that we at one of the more recent home shows I went to down with you guys in Grand Rapids, we had a handful of people that were builders that were like, "Hey, if we wanted to get stuff from you guys, but I wanted to run the cables, could we do that?" And I talked with a particular gentleman that was there, and he asked that question, and I was like, "Yes, like we'll tell you where they need to go. Like you give us the plans for the house, we can then draw up where all those cables are going to need to go, and then we just show up, pop everything in, and teach you how to use it. If and if you're comfortable with more than that, and you want to actually put them into, like, we can just sell you the equipment, and then you can do as much of it as you're comfortable doing on your own, and we can take care of the rest." So it's definitely a very big range of people from I know nothing, do everything for me, and do 10% of the work for me because I just don't want to program it at the end. Uh, but yeah, I think that's all we had for everything content wise for the episode today. I know that we talked about a lot of different things over a lot of different sections of home security. So is there anything that you want to add to that, Mike?
Nothing specifically. Hopefully, I'll be able to join as a more permanent member of the podcast. I know it's been a little interesting with time zones, me being on the opposite coast, and also, um, just where I am. It's been tough, but being able to be on the show will be really awesome. It's always great talking to you guys about tech.
Yeah,
Um,
and as much as it happens outside of the podcast.
yeah, exactly. The tech is obviously something that's near and dear to all of our hearts, and something that we've all grown up doing and using, and it's obviously our careers now. So yeah, being able to talk about it on a podcast is fun too. Also being on this side, on the camera side, since I'm the one that's been editing and doing all the stuff on the other side of the podcast. Um, yeah, so as far as um, as far as that goes, I should be back in the next episode. Um, Thanks for having me, Will and Steven, and letting me join back up like the original plan was. Uh, all right, well, thanks for listening or watching, everybody. Feel free to subscribe if this content brings you any joy or knowledge, or you just like listening to us. We always appreciate every minute that you listen. But otherwise, we'll be back next episode, and we'll see you.
Awesome. Thanks for coming in, Mike.